Hello everyone. Today I'm going to review the film Deliverance from 1972. I watched this movie last night. I've been wanting to watch it for quite a while, but I have put it off for a very specific reason because this movie contains some very disturbing elements, particularly one scene that is, if you've heard about the movie or you watched the movie, you know which scene I'm talking about. It involves, um, for the lack of a better term, assault. So it is very crucial and important to the story. I try not to watch films with these kinds of material um, because I don't feel very good afterwards. I tend to avoid films where there's like a lot of shock value and a lot of violence and sexual content. I try to avoid that. Um, but at the same time, time to time, I do watch films like this just to get a knowledge about films, understand the history of films, understand the history of the world. So as well as people from other cultures, like for example, I'm Indian guy from Hong Kong, but I do have a lot of interest to learn about the American culture from back then, and the world culture, right? So this film is a survival horror film. It's about four friends who go to the wilderness to see this dam, um, this river that's going to be um, reconstructed. Like they're gonna remove it to make something else. So these four friends are like, you know what? This modernization is happening. We gotta go to the wilderness to. Uh, we gotta go on this canoe trip down the river to see this one last time and get back. So that is their goal, and the film is about what happens once they got there and whether they make it out alive or not. So yes, this is in every sense of the word, I think this is a horror film. The way it's built up, the way it goes, it is a horror film. I don't know whether you can say it's a thriller. Maybe it's a thriller as well, but when I see it, I've seen it as a horror film by every means. And it's a very good horror film. Like, legitimately, this is definitely one of the top horror films that I've seen. Usually, when I watch horror films, I don't really feel scared, or I don't feel anything for the characters. But this movie, what it did so well is that every single character, you really feel like they're a real person. You actually understand their motivations. You care about them. They might not be the perfect people, and they are flawed, but there's a sense of this humanity in the characters. It doesn't feel like the director is just trying to make it in a way that, oh, these are a bunch of characters that are horrible people, narcissists, and you're gonna watch them die, and that's it. That's the whole movie. It's not that here, and I really like the fact that it's not like that. The problem I have with a lot of horror films is that is what happens with they try to make the characters as unlikable as possible so that when they die, the audience feels satisfied. And I personally don't really like that kind of movie. I want to see a movie where I care about the characters, I understand the characters, I go along in their journey, and I want to see something good happen, or at least if something bad happens, I want to feel like, oh shit, like something bad happened to this person. That is the type of film that I really like. So this film has that. So I really liked the way they conveyed it. I really felt scared for the characters. I was very like, shocked, and it was not shock value for the sake of shock value. It felt real. It felt like, this is something that really could happen if you go there to this wilderness where you got these people who are inbreds. They don't care about society's rules, they don't care about the law. This kind of thing could happen, and that sense of scare, like, that sense of like intensity is there. So I really like that. The performances, every actor did a great job. You got a famous actor, John White, is in this movie, and also some other characters, other actors. I don't really know them, but I think they did a amazing job. It was so real. The performances, of course, I think it was good for its time. Like I can see that's how people acted during that time in the 70s. So I thought the performances were so realistic. And once again, that is what made the movie so intense and real and impactful. Um, Another thing I saw is that the the whole screenplay is not a screenplay that there's a lot of things going on. It's very simple in a good way. Like what without spoiling the movie too much, what I want to say is what happens is these guys go to this place, they go to the river, something bad happens, they make their way back, and they go to the hospital, and that's it. And they deal with whatever happened, the trauma, the crime that happened in the river, and then that's it. That's a whole movie. There's no scenes of like these them fighting off all these inbred, shooting them up, and killing all these people. They're protecting these people and this carnage. That is not what happens in this movie, and that makes it even more real. I would expect another film might tackle this in a way that these guys go to this river, they kill someone, and then when they get back, another group of people, this whole village, tries to kill them, and then they get out from there, right? The whole movie is about them getting out when they're trapped by all these people, by all these inbred people over there. So instead of that happening, that's what I expected would happen when I began to watch this movie, but that is not what happened. So I was like taken in for a surprise. So I expect maybe it's the filmmaking style of the 70s and the expectation of the 70s was like that, and good for me because I really like movies from the 70s, because I felt like I always still feel like it's very grounded even if the story is very small scale. They really bring out the realism, the intensity, and the simple story, the simple filmmaking is also it is functional, but it also works so well. Um, yeah, that's what I believe. And another thing, this movie was shot by Wilmos Zsigmond, who is a very very famous cinematographer from the 70s. He's one of the best cinematographers of all time. And in this movie, I also really like the cinematography. It was very realistic. The whole tone and the lighting, the color texture was all very realistic. There was no special filters as far as I can see. I think there's a few scenes where there were filters used. There were some special effects with the day for night, which personally I didn't like it. Uh, but all the day scenes were so well done. I loved the cinematography. Um, I didn't see. Yes, there were some intentional lighting here and there that was done, but overall, I felt like the cinematography was so realistic. Um, and the canoe sequences were also really, really well filmed. This was back in the 70s, there was no autofocus. This was using the anamorphic lenses. This movie was made using anamorphic lenses. They, I'm pretty sure there was no monitors that we have today, which makes filmmaking a lot more easier. I'm guessing they might have used like multiple cameras, but man, this must have been a very dangerous film to film in the water in the wilderness. Like if the camera, these giant 35 millimeter cameras with anamorphic lenses, if it drops, then you got the whole the camera's dead. So it must have taken a lot of technical skill, a lot of planning to actually get there and film all the shots, make sure all the shots in the shot list are done. So I see a lot of ingenuity with that. This is not a movie that you can just go to the wilderness to film just like that with no planning or shot list. You can see that the director. This movie was directed by a guy called John Boorman. I've not watched his other films yet, um, but what I can see is that the directing, the level of planning that must have went into filming a movie like this was very very good, and the editing is also very very solid. Like I the action sequences, the way the shots cut here and there, um, even when there's like scenes where they shoot the bow and arrow, the scenes where there's a body that they lower down from the cliff, and then there's a scene where the very infamous scene in the movie, all of that was like so well thought out of and edited, and it must have taken they must have planned it all the way through. That's what I can see, and yeah, it was done very very well. I really liked it. Um, the only scene that I didn't like was, as I mentioned, the day for night sequence in this movie. There were a couple of scenes where I'm pretty sure they shot at night, so I can see that it's not like they couldn't shoot at night. Maybe because of logistical reasons, they couldn't shoot that scene at night. So they decided, okay, we're just gonna shoot in the daytime. We're gonna get this scene done, and that's it. That one scene, it happens in the second half of the movie, where and I, if you haven't seen the movie, this is gonna be a spoiler, so you can click off this review. But what happens is that John White's character climbs up the cliff to kill the other gunman who was there, so that they leave no traces, and then escape from this river and the village, right? So this guy climbs up, and by the time he climbs up, it's already nighttime. So he falls asleep, and then he wakes up and then kills the guy. So, okay, the conception of the scene was good. Okay, it's very intense. It's very yeah, it's still very realistic and intense. But unfortunately, the day for night way that they filmed, um, and of course, this is a 70s film. 70s technology was not that advanced, so you couldn't do a lot of background replacements, I assume. So the background replacement, the sky replacement that they did here was very, very fake. And it took away from the realism of the overall movie that was set up. So that was the only thing that I didn't like about the movie. And another thing, it's hard to find something that I didn't like about this movie. I think overall everything was pretty damn well done. Like it's very difficult to really find faults. But if I do have to find faults, maybe it's the some of the special effects could have been done better. Overall, the special effects were still very very solid for the time that they did it. And there's a scene where the character of Drew, he has his arms twisted, so we don't know what exactly happened. We would assume maybe he got um, someone in the river. They broke his bones, or he broke his bones when he fell down the river. We don't know exactly what happened. That was very very creepy. That special effects was well done. The scenes where they shoot the bow and arrow, I felt could have been done a little bit better. But it was still very solid. Okay, it was still very solid. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. I think the what they tried to show is how normal people would react and deal with that kind of situations. These guys are not special operatives or soldiers. These guys are just normal office workers in the city. They don't know that much about the wilderness aside from one character who he shoots the bow and arrow, and he's like the guy who's the macho man. And yeah, it was very realistic. And I also really like the commentary about this man versus nature. that's said throughout, because these guys are like, they want to experience the good side of nature, but there's a bad side of nature as well, where nature does not care about you. You could go there and, your laws that are followed in the city, it does not matter in the wilderness, where there's these people living a lawless life. These guys do not care about what arguments you bring up. Even if you're right, even if you make a lot of sense, even if you give them what they want, it doesn't matter. If they want to assault you, they'll assault you. If they want to kill you, they'll kill you. And you can do nothing about it, except if you have some weapons to defend yourself. So I thought it was very well done. Definitely recommend watching the movie, but I would say viewers' discretion advice. There are some very disturbing content in this movie, so do do not watch this movie if you have a weak stomach. But other than that, this is a great movie, a very good horror movie, and yeah, that's my review of it. And I'll see you guys in the next review. Thank you.